He doesn't like the French.
Not at all.
Let me see. We ended up, it's our review session. Did we do this one? Yes, we did that one. Here we are. This is where we are. Okay. Very good. So, welcome. Hope everyone had a nice break. Next week we get another day off because of the SCU conference. That's where we got waylaid earlier, trying to explain what that is, which I don't know what it is. But I'm sure it's wonderful. However, I encourage everyone to go to it. Okay. That's not funny. I mean, what? Of course I encourage you to go. Now, the French Revolution takes place. Well, what's going on here? It shouldn't look like that, but it does look like that. Isn't that strange? I guess it'll be all right. Yeah, it's okay. Okay. And so we see then, this is where we ended up, that once they take over, they being the Reign of Terror, Robespierre and his buddies, he is even going to put to death his old buddy Danton. Remember the Jacobins? Just being a Jacobin doesn't save you. And anyone who is considered to be an opponent of the revolution, which comes to now mean anyone who opposes anything that is officially set forth by Committee on Public Safety and so forth, will end up meeting the guillotine, the national razor, as it's called. And we're going to see that Christianity is replaced by the worship of reason. So they basically abolish the church. They abolish Sundays. They abolish the days of the week. They abolish a 7-day week. So, the weeks are now 10 days long, and all the days have different names. All the months have different names, and there are different months. So it really messes with, sort of timekeeping. Yes?
Does that mean you should work longer as well? Just 10 days instead of 7?
Well,
Do they even have weekends?
I believe they had a day off every so often. You might have gotten 2 days off after you worked 8. Yeah. But here's the bonus. At the end of the year, you've got 10-day weeks, right? So then you've got the months. So when you get to the end of the year, you get 5 days off at the end of the year to celebrate the revolution. Well, that's pretty good, isn't it? No? Okay. They changed the name of the months. So, you have 36 weeks, and then 5 days off at the end. So all the names of the months are different, because what they wanted to do was to remove any reference to Christianity and so forth, and also to disrupt the church calendar. And I know all of you are well versed in the liturgy of the church, so you know all about the church calendar. We don't have time to talk about it here. The church has a whole cycle, right? Right now we're in Lent. Not Lent. Lent. Not thon, theme. Shimmy shone. Shim shone thon. People are going to listen to this and wonder what this means. The answer is I don't know. But whatever it is, it's in there. But, so that means that pretty quickly it's hard to tell. If you don't know the days of the week and you don't know the months and you change all of that, you begin to get confused when, for a while you could say, okay, they make a 10-day week, but this is really Sunday. So I'll remember this is Sunday. But after a few months in, it gets to be harder and harder to go back and figure that out. I guess if you had your Google Calendar or something, you could set it up somehow, but they didn't have that. So pretty soon they don't know, and they even rename the months. For example, in the summer, they had a month called Thermidor. Thermidor, right? because of the thermal, because it was hot. That was basically part of what would be our July and August. And that'll come up when we have the Thermidorian reaction. Especially, that's why I'm mentioning it now, because that's what they'll call it. They changed the name of Notre Dame, Our Lady, what it stands for, means Mary, it's all about Mary, to the cathedral or the Temple of Reason. And Robespierre actually serves as kind of like the, I don't know if he called himself a high priest, but the main officiant, how's that, in this. So, okay, some big changes taking place. And then we see that there are factions within the Jacobins, because remember now, all the other, Girondis and others have either been executed, been imprisoned, or have fled, or converted over to Jacobins. Of course, that'd be very suspicious. We convert somebody over to Jacobinianism. Jacobinianism? That's probably not a word. And so Robespierre actually accuses Danton, and they had been former allies, of being an enemy of the state. And therefore Danton is led out to the national razor, and he gets a very close shave. I think it was that they ordered those blades online for the guillotine. Somebody named Harry. I try to avoid anything that wants me to make regular and recurring payments. Like you order this, like these clubs that want to send you things, like every month we're going to send you something, or every 6 weeks. I don't want that. I want to decide when I want it, and then I'll order it, or I'll go buy it. And I don't want you to have my credit card information, because you're just going to charge me indiscriminately and then not tell me. I'm going to have to figure it out. So keep that in mind. So we also see that eventually, when you are the main guy and you're running everything, that's pretty good, but there's only one way they're going to get rid of you, get you out of office. So actually, some people reacted to Robespierre. They thought he had gone too far. How had he gone too far? Well, he was actually, of course, leading these services in the formerly called Notre Dame Cathedral there in the center of Paris. Beautiful building, by the way. If you get to Paris, I recommend you go in and take a look at it. I believe it's still free to walk through. Not too many things free to see in Paris, but I think that's one of them. Anyway, you'll want to see it. And it's a magnificent medieval building. And so they thought, this is all going to his head. And then when he starts having even, a leader like Danton executed, then finally people thought this reign of terror had gone too far, and there was a backlash against him. And he was arrested by more moderate Jacobins. Here's a painting, and it shows our buddy Robespierre right here being shot in the meeting place when he resists arrest, evidently. And they actually shot him in the throat. By doing this, they removed Robespierre his number one weapon, his voice. He could no longer talk. And, of course, he was wounded, and then he was put on trial. Trial in quotes. And, of course, he couldn't respond, persuade anybody to his way of thinking because he couldn't talk. And he is found guilty and guillotined himself. So perhaps fitting that the man who had sent so many to the guillotine was himself, had his life sliced off, snuffed out by the same method of execution in the public square on July 28, 1794. This is called the Thermidorian reaction. Thermidorian reaction. Because it happens in the month of Thermidor, which is basically sort of the last part of July and the beginning part of August. Remember, we said they renamed all the months. And obviously that's some of the hottest time of the year, so they called it the heat month, the thermal month. Right? Makes sense. The 28th of July is the 8th of Thermidor. Well, this will bring an end to the Reign of Terror. But of course, France cannot go backwards. They're not going to reinstitute a king at this point, anything like that. So a new government is drawn up. What is this new government? It's called the Directory. The Directory, which is basically ruled by a committee. A smaller committee is going to make the decisions. The Directory, of course, will have to solidify its base of power. This is what will lead to the rise of our good buddy Napoleon.
Wait, so what did you call it?
The Directory. What did I call it? The Directory. Fall of Jacobins, the Reign of Terror is over.
Okay,
And now it's the rise of a government called the Directory, which is a smaller group of people who are going to rule by committee. I don't know what else I said. Did I say something else? Okay.
but there was like no name,
They were the Directory.
oh,
The Directory. Or Thon Directory. Thone Directory. Anyway. The Directory. Yeah, you don't need anything else. Just put a capital D on it. Directory. So, just like saying, I don't know, the Congress. Or Congress. It's what it is. That's what the government's called. Now, they're going to have to solidify their control. And of course, there will be some rebellions against them and things. This is going to allow for the opportunity of a guy by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte to actually come to power or to gain in power. And we'll be talking more about him later, but we need to introduce him here. In October of 1795, some other Jacobins attempt to take over, try to reassert themselves over the Directory, and the Directory doesn't have a lot of military experience, those on it. They need someone who does have military experience and access and some success. The French didn't have much success in all their warfare. Remember, they're trying to export the revolution. They had a lot of defeats there, but maybe I shouldn't say the only, the main person, the main leader who emerges out of all these sort of revolution period battles is a still fairly young man who has risen up quickly in the ranks. And it's Napoleon Bonaparte. And he will prove to be, obviously, we know it's a spoiler alert, right? He's going to eventually take over the whole thing. But he will use this opportunity of the revolution and the whole restructuring of the military. You remember the military had been controlled by the upper class, the nobility. You could not really be an officer unless you were noble. Not only in France, but I'm talking in England and elsewhere too. And since Napoleon wasn't really nobility, and some people said he wasn't really French. Now don't let some people hear that. Wasn't really French. Why? Because he wasn't born in France. Born on the island of Corsica. And Corsica had been taken over by the French just a year or two before Napoleon was born, and so his parents were not French. He's raised on this island, which is nominally French. We'll be learning more about him, but then he'll be sent to France to be trained by his father, who accrues some money, military school, and he is made fun of by the French boys, the rich French boys, the noble French boys. Who is this guy? This guy with skin that's too dark, really, to be French. We can tell he's not French by looking at him. His accent doesn't have a good French accent. And so a lot of them thought he was, some kind of an Italian, French wannabe nobleman kind of guy. And so that's the way they treated him. Okay? Now, he's going to use this opportunity to rise up, and this will be not his last step, but one of his next to the last steps. And as we study his life, we'll see more about it. So the general Napoleon is called by the Directory to come help them to crush this rebellion of the Jacobins who don't like what's happened. Not saying they necessarily supported Robespierre, but they didn't like the idea they were losing power. And so you got to be careful who you call to help you. You see? Because if somebody calls to help, if somebody comes to help you, sometimes this is why, for example, I'll just give you an example. Let's say I'm at my house and I hear and I go to the door, I say, "Who is it?" And they say, "We're from the government and we're here to help you." What do? Do I open the door and say, "Hey, come on in"? No, what I do is I make sure the door's locked. And then I go out the back door. And I get out of there, if I can, and hopefully they'll leave and forget about me. Okay? That's me. You do what you want. But I'm not a big fan of people controlling me. And that's what I think the government tries to do. Now, maybe you have a different view. But I think mostly they're trying to control me. Take my money. That's what they want. Take my freedom. That's what they also want. And control me. I don't care who's the president. That's what happens. It ends up happening one way or the other. And so that's why I try to avoid them. I mean, it's just like if I'm driving along and there's a police car behind me, that doesn't reassure me. Maybe it reassures you. It makes me nervous. And you know what I do? I turn at the first available place to turn. I just keep turning until they no longer follow me. Or they pull me over, I guess. I don't want to be followed. Or I slow down. That's the other thing I do. I slow down a lot and let them pass me, and then I turn off. Something like that. There are different techniques. But that's just me. That's just me. I grew up in a small town. The police used to follow people around it. So I would just turn. I'd go to every corner. We had a lot of four-way stops. Every four-way stop, I would turn right, turn right, turn right. Because it's easier to turn right. Less likely to get a ticket turning right than turning left. Think about it. And then eventually the cops got tired of turning. I wasn't actually breaking any laws, but I was annoying them, which is fine. But just be careful when you do that you go very slowly, deliberately, use your turn signals, come to a complete stop. Anyway. Later, the guy that they asked to help you, kind of like, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you. I'm Napoleon, and I'm here to help you, Directory. You know what happens? 1799, boom, he takes over. Kicks out the Directory. He's just helping them. I'm going to help you so much we don't even need you guys anymore, right? So this all happens in, a little over 3 years, 3.5 years, something like that. He goes from helping them to basically eliminating, I don't mean he kills them, but he eliminates them from power, and he takes over as the sole ruler of France. And so what we see then, by 1799, we have gone in, about 12 years roughly, let's say. about 12 years. From having a king to now having a sole ruler, first a consul and then later an emperor. But still not this kind of democratic government that maybe some people had hoped for. All right? Any questions there? None whatsoever? Okay.